Hi, this is what we covered the last time round. Check it out.
Hello everyone. I'm David. A few months ago, my company underwent a major digital transformation. It was a challenging time, as we had to adapt to new technologies and workflows. Now my company wants to use AI more, and I'm worried about losing my job.
All this has created a lot of uncertainty, which means what? For companies, they had to change their priorities. And for the people working in the companies and businesses, people like yourselves, now we have to make sure we are adaptable. We have to make sure we develop internal resilience. Our mind is like a magnet. We attract things. Okay? If you think of problems, you attract problems. Right? If you think of solutions, solutions come to you. One of the primary focus I get my clients to look at when they are trying to reframe themselves to look at things in a positive way is to dive deep into looking at what they are good at.
Hey, can't wait to see you soon. All right?
Are you someone who, when you undergo dramatic changes in your life, in your career, you get feelings like this? Feelings which is stopping you from moving forward, from doing something productive. Well, that's the topic for today, and we're going to discuss how we can overcome this. Now, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Ewan. I'm a practicing career coach for the last almost 9 years now. I've been having my own practice and have been helping many job seekers and people who are really mindful of their careers. I've also conducted many such sessions like today with various agencies like WSG, E2I, as well as other private companies. Now, one of the biggest common factor between all the people I've helped is the fact that if they don't overcome the feelings of ineptitude, the feelings of not being able to cope with all the changes that's happening in their lives, they can't move forward. They can't move on to the next step. Yeah? So the question I want to ask ourselves is this: why does change scare us so much? Why does change scare us so much? Is it because of fear? Do you fear something when change happens? Can you help me? Type it into the chat box. What are you fearful of when you are experiencing dramatic change? Can you type into the chat box? What are you fearful of when you are facing with dramatic change? Uncertainty, unknown, self-doubt, uncertainty again. Thank you. Essentially, uncertainty seems to be top of the pile. Unknown, the fear of failure. You're not comfortable with things going on around you. And sometimes it's the fear of criticism, right? Somebody mentioned low self-esteem. In my work with job seekers, there are also a couple of surprising fears that they have as well. Maybe you have it. Is this fear of success? They feel that, hey, maybe I'm not actually suitable for this change. The so-called imposter syndrome. Some also fear that, with this change comes more work for them. The irony of that, right? So that's fear. There's also another factor, which is loss, a sense of loss. What do you lose when change happens, when disruption happens? What do you lose? Well, if you look at it carefully, it's a loss of control over the familiar things that are happening to you. It is the loss of something that you had previously, right? There's also another reason why change scares us. It's also because of some past experience we had as a result of dramatic changes to our lives, and it wasn't a very positive experience. Yeah. Now, it's fair to say that, change, the biggest impact of change for us is disruption. And I like this saying, which I just came across last night from Daryl Plummer from the Gartner Futures Lab. He says that disruption is a fundamental shift in the system that you are working in. It doesn't go back to the way it was before. So it is not a fad. It is not the Pokemon Go games that you used to play with, right? So if you think about it, that's one of the reasons why change and disruption is so scary for us, because we can't go back to what things were before. Can you go back to the world we knew in 2019 before the pandemic? No, right? Now, let me ask you this. What are the changes you are facing now? Somebody says AI, new work environment, okay, potential career transition, career uncertainty, new skills, new boss, midlife career switch, younger co-workers, interaction, reorg, okay, new workplace, new boss, little late career switch. Thank you so much for sharing this with me. Okay, what I want to do now is really a short poll, okay, to really get an understanding of your background. This will influence the way I move ahead with today's session as well. All right, so let me take a look at this. Okay, so most of you have not been to my previous workshop on this topic on coping with change, which happened in June. That's fine. I'm going to reiterate some of the points that I mentioned, but I'm going to do something different. Okay, as far as age group is concerned, majority are between 31 to 45, although there's a fair chunk of you above 46. Mostly unemployed, and quite a few are working part-time and considering a career switch. And most of you are experiencing change which has been anticipated. Great. Thank you very much. All right. So if I look at the change itself, when change happens to us, okay, what things within our careers that is likely to change? What things within our careers is likely to change? Right. Some of you already mentioned in your chat, all right, the reasons why you are here, right? You've lost your job, or there's changes happening in the workplace, whether it's new colleagues, new boss, new processes, okay? Then other changes could also include making a career switch, right? You are coming back to work after a long period away. And for those of you who are above 55, you're considering what to do next upon retirement, right? Very significant changes coming in. Okay, so if that's the case, if you think about this, what will happen to our careers when we cannot cope with all these things happening? What do you guys think? If you can't cope with, having a new boss, having a job, losing your job, cannot cope with all the new things coming into the workforce, when you're coming back into the workforce, what's going to happen to your own career progress? If you think about it, essentially is what? Sometimes you may not have a smooth sailing in terms of your career success, right? Opportunities may be missed. Productivity may fall, right? Your job satisfaction may not be there. In fact, you get so frustrated, you may have stress, you may burn out, you have other mental health issues, right? Now, for those of you who are currently employed and you're experiencing change in your workplace, there's this risk that if you don't adapt, you may be replaced. Okay? Now, like I mentioned earlier, I did this same topic in June of this year. Okay, and one of the things I focused on during that period was particularly dealing with change in a more broad spectrum. So I'm going to try and zoom down to today's session in terms of more specifics, but also creating a process where you can use the same principles to adapt and help you cope with the other changes that's happening in your career. Okay, so firstly, right, unexpected changes, anticipated changes. I noted that a slight majority of you are experiencing changes we are anticipated. Don't worry, we will talk about that. All right. Now, how are we going to illustrate these two? Is really using cases, right? So as far as unexpected changes, I'm going to use Cedric as a case study, right? And Cedric has just experienced a job loss. Okay. As far as anticipated changes are concerned, I'm going to use Mary. Mary's experiencing a little bit of turmoil in her workplace. Now, hopefully by the end of today's session, you will learn how to cope with unexpected changes. You will learn how to prepare for anticipated changes. And you will use this framework, which I call the change management process, to be able to then use it for the other possible impacts in your career, like career switching, like reaching retirement, or even coming back to the workforce after a long period. Okay, so this is the framework that is new that I didn't talk about in the last session. Okay, so there's a lot to cover. So let's start with the first one. Given that most of you are going through changes, which is anticipated, let me start with that one first. Okay, so basically, it will be the case of Mary. So let me share with you Mary's issues currently happening to her now.
Hi, I'm Mary. I've been with my company for many, many years. At almost 53 years old, I've become used to the ways things have been done. Recently, I've heard rumors that the company is planning to move into new business areas and will be looking to build new teams and introduce new processes. I'm really worried I cannot handle all these changes. How can I cope with the new technologies like AI and the new company culture? Will I be redundant?
Okay, so you can see that Mary is very worried because there's the bosses, the company is saying, we're gonna have to introduce something new, right? Mary, you're gonna have to work in a different way. You're gonna have to do things differently, right? And that's causing her a lot of concerns. Okay, so let's start the first step here first, as far as the change management process is concerned. This is what? Dealing with the current situation. The things that Mary is experiencing because of the changes in her work environment. Okay, so that's the first step. So firstly, let's understand this. Okay, if you are undergoing something similar to Mary, and I saw changes happening in the workplace, what does it mean? What does it mean to someone like Mary when she's hearing that, the company has to modify the processes, put in new technologies? What does it mean to someone like Mary? Layoff potential could be adapting to new processes. What else? What else do you think it means to her? Termination, fear of loss. Well, those are the feelings, right? But if you look at it, as far as Mary is concerned, it basically means a lot of new things coming in. Right? New processes, new technology, possibly new colleagues even. And what happens after all that? Potentially a new culture as well. Okay? And then that evokes certain feelings, right? Many of you already mentioned that in the chat box just now. The feelings of confusion, she's scared, she's anxious, and sometimes the changes can overwhelm someone like her. Yeah? Because, all the new things are coming in. Oh no, what's happening to me? Okay? Which then leads to some of the major concerns which many of you have written in the chat box as well. Okay? The chat box the concerns of whether Is there a gap in her skills? Will she be made redundant? Will she fit into the new culture with the new team, the new bosses? She's going to be very, very uncomfortable. Can she cope? Right? So essentially, if you look at it, she has to deal with what's happening to her right now. Then, recognizing all these factors, then she must think, how can she overcome this? So it's essentially coming down to what is her change state? Is she considering change or is she not considering change? Let's deal with the first one first. If she's not considering change, why? Why is she not considering it? What can we do to help her overcome this inertia to accept the change? For those of you, if you are undergoing such a similar experience, what do you think? Well, perhaps largely is down to denial that, oh, this change cannot happen to me. Or maybe she's not aware of the implications of the change or awareness of the implications that the change can be beneficial to her as well. And how can we overcome this? How can we help her overcome this? How can she overcome this? Essentially is what? Getting more awareness, right? Whether it's through feedback or whether it's through so-called education about the impact of the changes that's going to happen to her. Yeah? First things first, Mary have to understand the reality that's happening now. What is the reality? Companies need to survive. And in order to survive, they must change. Why? Because there's so many things happening around them that if they don't change, they are in trouble. Yeah? Let me show you this video. When change happens, it is a very natural reaction for us to think, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? How am I going to cope? We start thinking about all the negative things. But when we start thinking about why the change needs to happen, then we can start realizing that actually, if I don't cope with the change, if I don't adapt to the change, it may be worse even for me down the line, okay, if I don't do anything about it. And it may be even worse for the company and my colleagues as well. Yeah? The other reality here is this. Okay? AI, some of you mentioned the fear of AI. AI is transforming the workplace in Singapore. And this report has discussed this. And this report has actually said that Singaporeans are among the highest users of AI at work. If you imagine someone like Mary, who refuses to then leverage on AI, she's going to be left behind, right? If you are saying, I don't want to use AI or I'm worried about AI, you need to get on the bandwagon because otherwise you'll be left behind. That is a reality. That is a reality. Okay? So hopefully, if any of you are not considering modifying your behavior, modifying the way you think as when change happens, go and find out more about why is it happening. What is the impact on you and the people surrounding you? Okay? Now, let's talk about if you are saying, yes, I want to do something about this, change is coming, I want to do something about this, right? But you may not be sure what's happening out there. You're not too certain. Best way to do this, to overcome this, is to weigh up the pros and cons and talk to people, talk to your network, talk to your friends, talk to your colleagues, right? Get their sense as well, right? Sometimes maybe you just need a little bit of support to push you to the next step and say, yes, I'm going to do something about it. Okay? So it is about your state of change, your state of mind to adapting to change. All right. Now, the other thing that I would encourage someone like Mary to do is to really focus down on what matters to her, what is really important to her, right? So first thing here is talking about success. What does success mean to Mary? Is it money? Is it free time? Is it feeling comfortable? Is it promotion? She has to think about it. How is it going to impact the people around her, her family, right? Who is she doing this for, right? What do they need from her? What do I want the people, my loved ones, the people around me to feel about me? Right? Opportunities. What opportunities will be created as a result of this change? What opportunities will be created as a result of this change? Okay? I'm going to share with you a little example of David. David was someone who appeared in our last webinar on this particular topic. He gave the example of how he looks at things that matter to him. Okay, so things like, as far as success is concerned, for David, he's saying, I want to be appreciated by my colleagues and boss. Success means career growth. Okay, I want to be able to move to a new role as smoothly as I can, and I want to have peace of mind. David was undergoing a lot of stress and strain because of the new thing going to be introduced into his company. He was an accountant, right? And they're introducing new processes into this company. So he had to reevaluate, what does success mean to him? What about the people around him? As far as he is concerned, he hopes that his colleagues still continues to have confidence in him, in his competencies, in his abilities. But also very important to him is what? That his family is provided for and his family is happy. Okay? And the last one is opportunities. Okay? What is the opportunity presented to him as a result of those changes? He said to himself, Oh, I can learn new skills which I can use in other areas. I can explore new areas like fintech. Okay? And I can find new ways to help not only my colleagues but other companies as well. And all these can be transferable. All these can be transferable. Okay? As a result of this, the overview is what? The overview is that he's able to build credibility, he's able to express how good he is, and that's what matters to him. That's what matters to him. So if you look at it, once someone like Mary considers all the factors that are important to her, considers how she can move beyond her change state from one that is not wanting to change to one that she accepts change and she wants to move forward. Now is the second part of the change management process. How to move on. How to move on. Right? So the first thing we have to look at is what is possible for someone like Mary. Consider this. She is experiencing a lot of changes in her workplace. What is possible for her? What is possible for her? Those of you who are experiencing this, you may have the same thoughts. She might say, oh, I could probably go into a new role. Okay? Maybe my job scope will be modified. Or I can just quit, go to a different company. Right? Or I can work at it and retrain myself. The last one, which many people are very tempted to do, I do nothing and hope for the best. But this is the worst outcome that you can have if you are experiencing changes like what Mary is going through. Right? But it is a possibility for you, right? If you want to consider that. It may not be the best way, but it is on the table for you. So you have to consider all this. Right. Once you have done all this, then you start thinking, what do you need to do? What does Mary need to do to move to the next step as well? She has to reevaluate already. She has to reevaluate what she brings to the table. Okay, her value add. Right? What problems she can help the company with. Is there a skills gap? Does she need to plug that skills gap? She needs to know what's happening in the marketplace. She needs to know what's happening in the marketplace, but also within her company. So she cannot disengage herself from the company. Many people tend to do that. When a company says, I'm introducing a lot of new things, many people tend to say, oh, I don't want to be part of this. I disengage myself from this. And that is the worst thing that you can do. Okay? You will need to integrate yourself into the new processes, the new thing that's happening. Perfectionism. Some of us feel that we cannot do something unless we are really good at it. Modify this way of thinking. Start looking at how you can make small steps, right? Mistakes will happen along the way, but don't let that fear of making a mistake stop you from moving, taking one step at a time. Okay? So, do away with perfectionism. Integrate this sense of progress by taking manageable small steps. Okay? Now, the next part, which I think is the most important part as well in terms of moving forward, is really this notion of understanding what resources you need to help you move forward. So in this case, because it is an internal process, it's an internal change that's happening to Mary, she could possibly seek advice from HR, right? From her supervisor, right? She could possibly go to a career coach and say, what are my options on the table, outside of the company? She should probably also talk to her network and see, hey, what's happening in the marketplace? What can you tell me about what's happening there? Is your company undergoing the same thing, right? And what are the people experiencing? What was the result of that thing that happened to your company as well? Okay, so Mary can do this. Mary can do this. So this is the process of moving forward. So if you look at it, this change management process is really about dealing with the current, dealing with the present, right? Seeking a way to overcome the inertia that the present situation may be forcing upon you, and then moving ahead, right? Examining all the options available to you, what you need to do, and what help you need. All right? Now, a possibility on the table for Mary, which I mentioned earlier, is what? She could probably redesign her work scope, or she could change her career to a totally different path. Now, these are topics of a separate workshop altogether, okay? And basically another couple of 3-hour sessions there. We should talk about how you redesign your work, how you develop a career switching strategy. Okay? Now, let's take a review of Mary's situation. Basically, this is something that she has to prepare for because she anticipates the changes that's coming on. Right? In the CMP, the change management process, the first thing we have to look at is how we deal with the current situation. Right? What is the meaning? What does it mean to someone like Mary that this thing is happening to her? Recognize the feelings that she has. Okay? Recognize the concerns that comes up. Okay? Don't ignore it. Don't push it one side and say it's irrelevant. No, we have to recognize all that. Right? How to overcome this? We have to find out the reality that's happening out there, the implications of staying still or moving forward. Find out what is really important to her, right? And how the change can impact those things that are important to her. And most importantly, don't do this yourself. Find help, find support. Once she feels comfortable, Mary feels comfortable on moving forward, then we look at the action stages. Okay? Identify what's possible for her, right? Develop steps and activities to help her decide and produce the outcomes that she wants. If she needs help, go for the help, right? But the priority here for her, someone like Mary, when you are doing all this, you want to set goals and activities which are achievable. Because remember, one of the things that stops someone in her situation from moving forward is the fact that it's too daunting, it's overwhelming, right? So in order to make it less daunting, less overwhelming, do it in manageable steps. Okay, so let's hear from Mary and what she has to say.
With all the changes coming, I've been looking at what's important for me. At my age, it'll take some effort to adjust. But I'm thankful for the support I've gotten from my family and my colleagues. I can see that my company needs to move with the times in order to survive, and I need to focus on the opportunities that can come about. Not all change is bad, Honestly, I'm pretty excited about what can happen next.
Hopefully, after going through these steps, you would have a sense of the positive possibilities that you can have if you adapt to the changes. Okay? Like what Mary has just mentioned. Hi, thanks for watching this video. If you like what you've seen and can't wait for the next one, don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel in the link below. See you soon. Okay, I just want to deal with a particular question that was sent to me by email for this particular topic. Okay, the question here, I paraphrase the question here. It says, how do we stay ahead of emerging trends in the employment landscape so that we can be proactive, so that we can have a competitive advantage in the hiring process? Yeah. So really, this notion of looking ahead is really about what? Anticipating what's going on. Anticipating what's going to happen. Right? How do we anticipate? The question, that's the magic question. How do we anticipate? Well, essentially, if you look at it, you really have to keep an lookout. Look out for quite a lot of things. Right? Look out for what are the things happening in the industry, in the economy, the growth sectors which are not doing well. You have to understand all those, right? Keep an eye on those things, okay? The other thing which is very critical as well is looking at what's happening with existing technologies as well as new technologies, okay? So don't ignore existing technologies. Don't just focus on the gem of the year about AI and all that. You have to also understand what's happening to existing technologies. Okay? So keeping an eye out on what's happening in the economy, the industry, the marketplace, understanding what's happening as far as existing and new technologies are concerned. Okay? There are some technologies that may be declining. You have to be aware of that. Then there's the last part, which is a very critical part because this influences the way you would then approach potential employers. This is what? What is the hiring process? What is the hiring requirements? The way employers are now looking for candidates for in the area that you are interested in, right? This is very, very important, okay? You have to understand this, okay? I'll give you a very typical example. 10, 15 years ago, it is fair to say it's very easy to find a job if you just look at the newspapers, right? Most of the jobs are advertised in the papers. You Saturday Classified and all that. Today, that is definitely not the case. The hiring practice has changed. Okay, most job opportunities are not advertised, are hidden. So you have to tune yourself to that fact and say, then how can I identify those opportunities? Okay. Then you may ask yourself, how can I find out all these things? There's so much going on. How can I find this out? Well, if you look at it, you can obviously do your desk search. Go online and look out, right? Look for reports, look for industry studies. Yes, that's fine. But please, 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 don't ignore this biggest component, which is what? Talking to people in that field. Whether it's in your network or whether it's going on, developing new relationships and talking to those people. Because these people are on the ground. They know firsthand what's happening. They will probably be the best people to tell you in the immediate future what they think is going to happen because they are going through it, right? And you have to then keep up to date. Keep up to date with all the things that's happening. So it's not just a one-time desk search or no. You have to continuously do this. You have to continuously do this. Right. Once you gather all the information, then you have to start thinking, all this information that I have, all this knowledge about the marketplace, the technologies, the opportunities that's coming up, how is this going to impact on my career in terms of these four domains, right? Whether it fits my personality, whether it fits my skill sets, my interests, my values. Okay? If there is a gap, do I need to plug that gap? Do I need to go for training? If I'm interested in that area, but I don't have the necessary skills or experience, do I need to plug that? Okay? But whatever it is, you need to take action. Okay? So that's why I come back to one of the options on the table for Mary is just don't do anything and let's hope for the best. Is probably not a very good option. Not a very good option. Okay, then maybe I'll move on to the next portion, right? Which is dealing with changes which are unexpected. Dealing with changes which are unexpected. In this case, it is Cedric. Okay, let Cedric tell you what he's going through.
Hi everyone, I'm Cedric. Just 2 weeks ago, I received news that I was about to be retrenched. This is a real shock to me. I've been with this company for almost 8 years and thought I was doing well. I just turned 45 earlier this year. I'm really feeling lost and not sure what to do next.
Right. So Cedric is in a situation where he doesn't feel very good about himself. Because why? He's been told that he's going to be let go. Right? He's experiencing a lot of negative emotion because he's been told that he's going to be let go. He's going to be let go. Right? So if you look at it, what does it mean to Cedric when he is losing his job? What is the impact for him as far as job loss is concerned? Okay, anxious, shock, financial security, uncertainty, no more active income stream, confidence loss, sense of helplessness, loss of income, self-doubt. Yeah, all right. So if you look at it, it means essentially he's not going to have a steady income. He's going to lose his income, right? But the other two, identity and purpose, is something where people don't really consciously think of, but I have to highlight this. Okay, what is this loss, this identity? Imagine if you are someone who has been in that job or in that role for a long time, right? And you lose that job. Imagine if someone comes to you and says, Cedric, what do you do? And suddenly you know that you're going to lose your job. Cedric can't say, oh, I'm an accountant. Why? Because, his identity was tied to his job. Very close. And it's very natural, especially for people who have been working for a long time in that same role, in that same company. Right? So it's a loss of identity. The other thing is about purpose. You may start feeling, what am I going to do? What is my contribution? How can I help other people now? As if he's thinking that way. Okay, so it's a loss of purpose. A loss of purpose. In my dealings with clients, these two notions of identity loss and sense of loss of purpose are very, very real. And sometimes it takes a lot of effort to sort of try and resolve this. Okay? So many of you mentioned feelings in your chat box. Feelings in your chat box. Okay? So he's scared. He can be angry. He can be confused, anxious. He can be very irritable. I just want to sort of share with you this is something that you might be familiar with. Okay, is the grief cycle by Kubler-Ross. Okay, so there is the first step, which is the sense of denial. The sense of denial, right? When you first hear something, then you say, no lah, this cannot happen to me lah. What is this? Why is this? No, it can't be real. Okay, how do we get over this? This is where you start looking at getting more support for the feelings that you're having. Okay, look after yourself. Okay, allow time to process. How much time varies according to each individual's ability to cope with that sense of denial. Right? I had a client later on, which I'll share with you, Mr. Tan, who by the time he came to me, he actually spent 1 whole year going through a sense of denial and anger. Right? Many people cope with it differently. Anger, very common. When you receive bad news, especially when in terms of job loss, you get a sense of injustice. You feel, hey, no, why is this like this? Cannot be. You are being unfair. Right? Those of you who have experienced a job loss, especially retrenchment, yes, that happens. Okay? How do we deal with this? Sometimes it's about how you control your emotions. Right? Are you going to let it overcome you, or are you going to manage it? And you manage it in a more constructive and positive way. Right? Many people tend to use this opportunity to go and do some physical activity that allows them to vent, okay, or some relaxation technique. Okay, allow some relaxation technique. Okay, the third stage, bargaining. Here you're trying to find out, why is this happening to me? I did okay. Is there somebody else also in the same boat as me? So you start reaching out to somebody else. You want to share your story. Okay, here is really probably the beginning of the up cycle, as you can see from the diagram. Okay, you acknowledge what's happening. You focus on what you can control, what you can influence, and then you also continue to seek support because you want to move ahead. Now, there are some people who are stuck in this area, right? You are depressed, you're overwhelmed, you feel helpless. I remember I had a client who was so stuck in this, right? He basically used that as a major excuse for not going out to find a job. Okay? He was very hostile to anybody who was actually working. He said, "Why should you be working? Right? I have done my job. Why am I not working? Why are you working?" Okay? He then went into a sense of being overwhelmed to say, "Oh my goodness, I don't know what to do." Okay? If you are stuck in this area, the best thing that you can do is really seek professional help. Okay? Or if you don't need that, some people have gone through just some self-care activities, look after yourself. But at the end of the day, you need to recognize that you are not alone in this. You are not alone in this. You need to seek support. Okay? Acceptance is basically the step on the verge of moving forward. Here you are looking at, hey, okay lah, this has happened to me. What can I do moving the next step? Okay, what can I plan for? So you focus on what you can do as a present, what you can do in the future. Okay, and how can you maintain the progress itself? Okay. If you want to take a picture of this slide, by all means do so. Okay. So one of the things that is very, very important, as you can see from what we did with Mary, is really making sure that we recognize the feelings involved when we are undergoing a change as dramatic as this. Okay? So we have to understand, if you look at the Kubler-Ross cycle, which stage are you at? Which stage are you at? Then you have to start thinking, okay, there's no sense of dismissing my feelings. I have to acknowledge that. Then I've got to do something about it. And usually this takes time. This takes time. Okay. And this is support as well. Okay. You need support. Okay. So that is very, very critical. What would be Cedric's concerns as far as job loss is concerned? Again, in the chat box, you have mentioned this. Okay. What's going to happen to me now? What else can I do? How am I going to find a new job? How is my family going to cope? How is my family going to cope? List down all the concerns that you may be feeling. Okay? So by doing that, you are dealing with the present. So how then can you move ahead? How can you move ahead? Now, for those of you who have been to my last workshop in June, you will have seen this 5R step that I described in detail. I'm not going to go through in detail here, but I'm going to give you a summary. Okay? I think that's sufficient for you to get a gist of it. If you want to know the detail, you can go to that workshop itself. The link will be provided to you later on. Right? So 5R approach essentially here is this: a review, redirect, reconnect, reprioritize, and reframe. So what does it mean? What does it mean? As far as review is concerned, look at what the situation is. Okay? Take a look at the perception of yourself to that situation, the perception of other people to you, and what's happening to you. And you look at how your situation is going to impact on the people around you. Now, what do I mean by all of this? Let me introduce to you Mr. Tan. I mentioned very briefly Mr. Tan just now. Okay, Mr. Tan is a very long-standing client of mine. In the past, he came, one of my first clients, in fact. When Mr. Tan came to me, he actually lost his job. He was actually jobless, unemployed for almost close to a year. Okay, and he had very big difficulties trying getting over the hump to move forward. So when I went through with Mr. Tan these 5R steps, okay, this is the first thing that he mentioned. He basically realized that, his behavior actually influenced and impacted people around him, especially his family. Okay, what he had to do then was to refocus and say, what am I good at? What am I good at? What are my strengths? But more importantly, remember this one was about 8 years ago. He had to look at the notion that being retrenched is not something personal. Okay, the company had to do something in order to survive. Right, there were other people that was affected as well. So retrenchment is not something. Oh, I arrow Mr. Tan. He had to recognize that as well. Redirect. Redirect. What do we mean by this? You have the energies because you've been working for so many years and suddenly you're out of work, you still have a lot of energy. Okay, how can you redirect those energies? You redirect them into your health. You redirect them into other areas that may be interesting to you. Okay, so as far as Mr. Tan was concerned, he focused on his own health and his own family. He was a biathlete in his younger days, so he revived the interest, activity, physical activity. He was a CFO at that time. Then he started looking at fintech. At that time, 8 years ago, fintech was very, very new. Okay, so he started looking into the area. So he was redirecting his energy because he had time and he had energies. Connecting again, reconnecting. Apart from connecting with your family, your loved ones, this is your chance to connect up with other people in your circle, your society, okay? Connected with what's happening in the environment, in other words, the marketplace, especially the market that you want to go into, or even the marketplace, the market that you are currently in, have been in. Okay, so Mr. Tan, he started focusing on rebuilding his network. He started looking at rebuilding family bonds, right? When he was working, he was so focused on work, he didn't have time to look beyond his immediate family. This was the time that he had. As a CFO, he started looking at, hey, how can I establish myself again in the CFO community? And because of his interest in fintech, he started looking at new circles, people who were also jumping onto the fintech bandwagon. So new circles. Reprioritizing. Really looking at what's important. Now, many of my clients, you may experience it too, many of my clients, when they have been working for a long time, they are established, right? They tend to think that, hey, work is important for me. Everything else is secondary. Okay? But when they lose their work, this whole sense of purpose, sense of identity becomes more important now. Okay? So start looking at what's important to you. Start looking at what you can do in terms of activities. And sustainability is what? Sustainability is trying to look at what sort of time horizon do you have in terms of your current status. Okay, so as far as Mr. Tan is concerned, for example, he looked at his family, he focused on his family, he restructured his finances. Okay, so he started saying, oh, I cannot go through the same financial outlay that I've been doing. So he relooked at the things that he had to spend on, he could spend on. Okay, he started looking at learning more the in-depth views about fintech. He started taking courses, okay, and he developed very healthy habits, not only physical habits, but also eating habits. Reframing, relooking at things in a different way. So silver lining, we all know what a silver lining is. What can we learn from these experiences? Right? How can we regain our confidence? As far as Mr. Tan is concerned, one of the biggest positive he gained during this period that he now had the flexibility to do a lot of things that he never had time to do. Okay, he was able to look at new circles, new networks, and by associating himself with a new group of people and by rebonding himself to his family, his current network, he began to feel more confident in himself. right? Because he knows, oh, there are people out there who still believes in me. Okay? You can't do this alone. This is something, confidence in yourself, for majority of us, comes from how other people see us. Okay? So that's what Mr. Tan did. If you want to take a look at the overall and take a screenshot of this, you can do so. So let's deal with this moving on first before we go for a break. Okay? Yeah. So what are the possibilities for Cedric? What are the possibilities for Cedric? He could enjoy his free time. Definitely, especially if he's financially still okay. He can take time off, take a sabbatical. He can apply for a same job in the same industry, or he can go for a totally new career path, right? Or he can do his own business. He can do his own business. So those are things on the table for him. Those are the things available to him, right? You may have the same options and possibilities, or you may have something extra, right? This is very particular to your situation. So what can Cedric do? What does he need to do? What does he need to do? Well, like I mentioned earlier, he has to acknowledge all the feelings that he's going through, right? Review his financial status, right? How long can he last given the current status? Look at what his value add is. What are his strengths? Know the marketplace, what's going on in the market. When he builds relationships, new networks, right? This is an opportunity for him to expand on his personal brand, telling other people what is he good at, so that he can attract opportunities. Family support, friend support, whatever support you need, develop that support. Okay, you need a support network, right? In the chat box, I saw you never walk alone, right? We should never walk alone. Right? What help do we need? Well, Cedric could say, I need some help in terms of planning, the structure. Maybe you go for a career coach. Financially, if he feels that he needs some help financially, maybe he can apply to the Ministry for Social Affairs for some welfare help. Okay, so again, this is very particular to your situation or to his situation. So this is the overall picture in a CMP for Cedric. Okay, so you have dealing with the present, what is happening with him, okay, and how he moves ahead after losing his job, right? How does he bridge this to this? Is by going through the 5R process that I mentioned earlier. So let me do a quick summary of this section on Cedric and coping with unexpected changes. Okay, so here we use the situation of a job loss to illustrate how we can cope with unexpected changes. Essentially, we're saying, again, same thing with Mary, deal with the present. What's happening with you? Okay, what does it mean to you? What are the feelings that you are going through? What are your concerns? Recognize those. Don't ignore them. The worst thing you can do is saying they are not important. They are very, very important. You can use the 5R process I just described. Okay, I find that it helped a lot of my clients. Not only that, it also helped me. Moving on, the same process of looking at what's possible for Cedric, what's on the table for him, what he needs to do, and what sort of help he needs. Okay?
Losing my job has been tough. I must admit I was very emotional and angry. But I know I need to move forward and plan for the next step. I need this, and my family needs this too. They have been worried for me, but I'm glad I have people who I can lean on. When I consider my options, I feel better that I have other possibilities to pursue. Now I need to take action.
All right. So one of the biggest factors that somebody like in Cedric's case is dwelling too much on the current and not taking action. Okay, So that's the important part. You need to sort of get over that hump and say, okay, I need to do something. Okay? In Cedric's case, he feels that his family needs him to do it. He feels he needs to do it, and therefore that's the impetus for him. Okay, welcome back. Okay. All right. Hope you had a nice stretch break. All right, nice stretch break. Now, I just hope that I'm not going too quickly breezing through the things that I've just mentioned. Okay, I think it's this topic is actually quite important because if you don't cope with changes, you can't move ahead, right? But I think the key thing here is that because there's a lot of things that's happening that we need to adapt and cope and change. What I've described to you is a very broad framework, but at the end of the day, you have to input those things into that framework itself to make it work for you. Okay, so maybe at this point, let me then recap what we just spent the last hour or so, hour and a half actually, well, hour and 15 minutes. Okay, so let's recap this. I think I saw some questions there, but I'll deal with that later on. Okay, over the last hour and a half or so, we basically went through these two particular topics. How we cope with unexpected changes, right? And we use the notion of a job loss as an example. How we prepare for anticipated changes. And here we use how the workplace has changed as an example as well. And within this, we basically use this framework, which I call the change management process. The change management process. So what is the change management process? If you look at it, essentially, it's basically two components. Okay? How we deal with the present, how we move on. Typically, when we look at the present, we have to consider the meaning, the impact of the change on us, how it makes us feel, and then what are our major concerns. Put everything like this on the table so that you know that it's there. Don't keep it inside. So that you need to acknowledge all those feelings and concerns that you have. Okay? Once you acknowledge those things, then it's a process of trying to overcome those before you move on to the next stage. How you do this, I've suggested a couple of ways. Okay? One is the 5R approach. Right? And the other one is basically a bit more fundamental, looking at creating your own awareness, being more aware of what's happening, the implications of that, relooking at what's important to you, getting support. Okay? But you have to fine-tune this into your own situation. Once you have done that, then it's time to move on. Right? Moving on means what? Means looking at what you can do. In other words, what are the possibilities, what are the options, right? What activities or actions you need to take in order to effect those possibilities. Okay? Identify, be very purposeful about what resources, what help you need. Okay? Be very clear about that. Okay? So we put it in the form of a table, and this is what we did as far as a change in the workplace, as far as a job loss is concerned. Okay, so if you want to take a screenshot of this, by all means do so. Now, earlier on I mentioned, this table could also be used to help you in other types of changes. Right? What are these other types? Right? It could be if you're making a career switch. It could be if you're coming back after a long absence from the workforce, like a returning mother. Okay? Or it could be something that says to you, I'm retiring, I'm considering retirement. What can I do? So if you really think about it, the table can be very simple to put together again. Very simple to put together again. I'm going to provide a really brief overview of how the table can be used in those situations. So let me enlarge that. Okay, so here again, if you want to take a screenshot, by all means do so. I very quickly put in the key elements for each type of career impact that you may be experiencing using the same framework. Okay. Now, the details of each component in those columns is really determined by your own situation, Okay. So please, don't say that, oh, you won't say that that is the point in there, it must be there. No, right? Modify this to your current situation. What is important to you, especially the things like the actions and the help needed, and also your concerns. Some of your concerns may be very different from what I've listed down there. Okay? I see the screenshot has been taken already, so that's good. I wanna sort of share with you something which I just came across last night. Okay, this is by the Gartner's Future Lab. So in that little talk that they did, they were going through what are the disruptions that may be coming on that we do not know. Okay, and then they described something which I felt that we need to think about as well. What if a disruption comes, but you didn't really notice that it's coming? What's going to happen, right? Now, in that video, they basically went on, first of all, they described, all the historical changes that happened. Okay, so you see here, right? And then they mapped it to the scale, the magnitude of the change. So here it is again, the full chart. So you can see here, all right, the magnitude of the change could be step 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, 1 is enhance, then the highest one is revolutionize. So as far as history was concerned, they mentioned the things like World War II Industrial Revolution was something that revolutionized our lives. Okay, other things like the civil rights, the digital television was something that transformed our lives. Okay, let me ask you, if you look at AI, specifically generative AI, which stage do you think they have listed in 2023? Generative AI. What do you mean by generative AI? Very different from normal AI, right? Generative AI is something where you input into something, they create something totally new. Okay, many said 5, some said 3 or 4 or 1. Okay. Basically, what Gartner Futures Lab has basically said that in 2023, generative AI is here under the transformation part of things. Now, they're not suggesting that it's going to stay there, okay, which I'm going to tell you later on. Now, what is the implication of this? What is the implication of this? I wanted to share this with you because I felt that talk really raised a lot of thinking in my head as I was preparing for this topic today. Okay, now they were saying that generative AI is different from all the other previous innovations because it changes the nature of what it means to be human. Wow. What does that mean? If you look at it, the agent AI, do you know what agent AI is? Basically, now there is a feature within all the more advanced AI where you can tell them, I want to achieve this. They go out and do all the tasks automatically to achieve that goal that you set. Okay? Gartner is saying that right now, generative AI is very expensive, but foresees that the cost is going to go down dramatically, especially if more and more people use it. Then there's this notion of self. How do they learn? The scary thing is that generative AI learns as it goes. Remember this notion of ChatGPT, right? It was learning how you talk, how people talk, how people think as they type in. The more it learns, the more it's able to craft the answers in a way that is more comfortable for us, right? As far as scale and scope is concerned, what they've mentioned is that it's going to go everywhere. It's going to go everywhere, right? So what they are suggesting here is that generative AI is going to transform the way we behave, the way we think, the way we look at things. So that's one major impact that we have to anticipate. But there's another one which I found really, really interesting. It's especially for people like me who is in the elder age group. Is this. They are saying, what if mature workers or older workers was able to use generative AI to become more productive, even more productive than the younger ones? Right? Saying that AI democratizes skill because then everybody is on the same level. It's just a matter of how you use the AI platform. I thought that was really, really interesting. So thoughts for you to consider, okay? What I'm trying to say here is really at the end of the day, we need to be prepared. We need to be prepared. We cannot just let things roll on by, okay? We cannot just say, oh, change is here. We just, oh, WTF moment, and then just ignore it? Or are we going to roll with it and adapt to it? Okay. Remember I said they were saying right now, generative AI in 2023 is under the transform. In that video, they were also saying all the other things that you see on the points there. Those are the other 6 things that are disrupting that's going to come. Okay. But what's going to happen in 2028 is also interesting. What they're saying here is in 2028, generative AI is going to be revolutionizing things. Now, if that is true, we definitely need to be prepared. Okay? My big message to you right now is this. Sometimes change, you may feel very negative about it because you are looking at it from the sense of loss, being fearful about the things that you do not know. But it is an opportunity, also an opportunity for you to have a fresh start about things as well. Okay? And I really like this saying, that person that said this. You need to disrupt yourself before something else does it for you. I felt that this is a really good notion to really think about, especially for someone like me who's an older worker. Okay? Disrupt myself before something else does it to me. When I prepared this book, this workshop, I was reminded of this book that I read many years ago, Who Moved My Cheese? I don't know if any of you have read this book by Spencer Johnson. Okay, so essentially, right, that book was talking about change and how you look at change, right? A couple of people mentioned they've seen it. So summary is that he's saying that change is inevitable and it is necessary. It is necessary. So it's very important. In fact, I would call it critical for us to be proactive about this. Okay. But in order to adapt to change, it means a willingness to let go of old habits, old beliefs. We need to let it go. In order to prevent change from overwhelming us, take small steps. Celebrate successes. This will build confidence and momentum. Okay. So just a brief summary of all the points that I mentioned here now. Essentially, if you look at it, how to overcome fear of change, relook at what is our sense of purpose. Know why we are doing what we do. Okay. Remember I said about identity. Identity and purpose are actually very closely linked together. Okay. Critical to have a support system. Very critical to have a support system. Your reaction means everything. So you need to control how you react to your situation. Okay. Sometimes we lose sight of what's happening around us, especially when changes occur. Okay. You need to take a step back and sometimes say, hey, how is this going to impact my situation, my family, my friends? What's happening now? We all had experiences of change in the past. What can we learn from those? I mentioned about perfectionism, right? Sometimes perfectionism prevents us from moving forward. Consider letting it go, right? So that you can do things in smaller pieces, smaller steps. And when you achieve those smaller steps, celebrate those achievements, no matter how small it is. Plan. Consider what if scenarios. What if I do this? What if this doesn't happen? What if this happens and I don't do anything? Okay? Look at those scenarios. If you need help, seek help. You never walk alone, all right? The reason, okay, I'm a Liverpool fan, but that statement resonates so much to me because it is about you having support from other people. You may not know it, but there are people who will support you, who care for you. Okay? If you are in the doldrums, you feel stuck, don't do it alone. Don't look at things alone. Right? That if nothing else, that will be my biggest message. Okay? You are not an island. Huh? Okay, Singapore is an island, but we have lost connections. Right? But you are not working in isolation. Okay, here is to really look at a couple of things. Number one, obviously, I just want to give you a heads up on my future workshops. Okay, so you can see there, this is my last live workshop for WSG in 2023, but I'll be coming back on 2024, okay, 23rd of January. So if you want, my other ways of contacting me are what you see here, okay. Every time I do finish my webinar sessions like this, I do get a lot of people contacting me on asking me questions about what they can do, their situation. So I'm always happy to help, right? Again, no obligation. Don't worry, I'm not going to charge you or anything, right? But my response might be slightly delayed, but I will respond, okay? So those things are there. And those of you who, by and by, if you are interested in looking at how I coach people, right? You can engage. I basically do coaching on a package basis, so you can take a look at that. If you are my past participant on any of my workshops, obviously there's going to be some discount for you as well. All right. And similarly, if you are interested in being a career coach, right? I'm one of the few people who actually provide training to be to certify people to be an international career coach. Okay, so you can contact me as well. So basically my difference here is that I coach people on a smaller scale, right? There are people who coach on maybe 15, 20. Basically my maximum class size is 6 because I feel that that's the best way to develop your coaching skills, not the mass classes. Okay, so that's my context, my process itself. I just want to close this off relating to the topic by saying that, changes are coming, changes are here. In fact, someone mentioned that, the year 2023 is when everything changes, right? And he's referring to generative AI and all that, right? I thought that year 2020 with the pandemic, everything changed. But now if I look at it, this year there's so much more changes. It's mind-boggling to be frank with you. So if you are not moving ahead with the change, you will be left behind. You will suffer. So my strong suggestion here is that, don't look at change if it's something that whether you need to do, it's something that you must do. Okay? Thank you so much everyone for watching. All right, like I said, this is my last live webinar for 2023. If I don't remain in contact with you for the rest of the year, I wish you all the best. This year, I hope has treated you well despite all the challenges that you face. I look at the positive side of things. Christmas is coming, New Year is coming, another brand new year is going to come as well. Okay, so hopefully we move ahead with some positivity in mind, and then by all means keep in touch with me. All right, email me whatever it is you feel like. All right, and hopefully I will see you for the next session in January itself.